Okay, tonight's homework has to do with transition metals. This is ChemQuest 20, and I want you to keep in mind that it takes into account everything that we've done in the last two ChemQuests. So don't get freaked out about it. Just simply do the best you can. It'll work for you if you just stop and think about charges. Okay, charges make all the difference in the world. And then when you're naming things, we'll go over some skills that you need to develop in order to name these compounds. So if you'll go to page 293, ChemQuest 20, Transition Metals. Remember that transition metals are the exception to the rule. A lot of them are what we call polyvalent ions, meaning that they have more than one oxidation state, which means they can have more than one type of charge. And so I don't expect you to memorize them, although I know you'll get familiar with them as we go. But I want you to make sure that you pay attention to the fact that some of these will have differing valence electrons. So first off, write the formulas for the following compounds. Now you notice above in the information part, they give you silver with the symbol Ag and a +1 charge, zinc Zn with a 2+ charge, and cadmium Cd with a 2+ charge. So those are what you're going to use for critical thinking and some of the other questions after. So looking at number 1, it says write the formulas for the following compounds, and it spells out silver nitrate. Well, if you go up above and you realize that silver has a symbol of Ag, and we know it's a +1 cation, and nitrate, because it is 8 in its name, we know it's going to have oxygens. And if you go back to the last ChemQuest that we did, you'll recognize that nitrate is an NO3 with a -1 charge. So knowing that we have two rules, one, the cation goes first and the anion goes second, and number 2, any ionic compound must be charge neutral, then we know that this compound will simply be AgNO3, because the plus and the minus cancel each other out. Okay, let's go to B. Zinc phosphate. Once again, zinc is listed above, and zinc is a 2+ ion. And phosphate, we know from our last homework assignment, is PO4, and we know that it has a 3- charge. And so in order to, we know that zinc's going to go first, so we know it's going to be Zn. And we know that it's going to be PO4. But we also know that in order for these two numbers to cancel, in order for us to have a charge neutral compound, we need to find, in this case, a common multiple. And the common multiple is 6. So what do we need to multiply this by in order to get that? We know we have to multiply by a 3. 3 times 2 is +6. And phosphate, we'll need to multiply by a 2, which will give us a -6. So when we have to put a subscript outside a polyatomic ion, we have to make sure that we put the parentheses, and then we put our subscript out there, and now we have zinc phosphate. For C, we have cadmium chloride, and we know that cadmium is Cd, and it has a charge of 2+, and chloride. Now, this is where they try and catch you, because these other two have 8s, which means they are going to be combined with oxygen. But this one is just ide, and in this case it's chloride. And we know that when we have a single atom with no oxygen, we are going to change the name from ene or N to ide. So cadmium chloride will be CdCl. And because we have a 2+ here, and chlorine is a 1-, then we're going to have to drop a 2 down here so that these two 1-'s cancel the 2+. And now we've solved that problem. Okay, now we're going to go down to copper chloride, and iron sulfate. And you'll notice that each one is a little bit different. And what I want you to pay attention to here is that in all of the ones that we've done so far, what we've been able to do is to crisscross. This is called crisscross method. We've been able to take our charges and we've been able to crisscross them. So you see this one's a 3 and this one's a 2. This one is a 1, and so we don't need a subscript here. And this one's a 1, so we don't need a subscript here. So as you're doing these next problems, keep in mind to pay attention to the name first, and also pay attention to the charges, which means you have to pay attention to the subscripts. And then you can actually reverse crisscross. Okay? It's like doing the cha-cha slide. All right, so let's take a look at number 2A. It says copper chloride, which we did above. And you'll notice that Cl has a sub 2. Now again, if we go back to our charges, if we do a reverse crisscross on this one, and we put the 2 up here, we know this is a cation, so that should be a 2+. And we know this has no subscript, and so this must assume 1, and we know chlorine is an anion, so it has to have a negative charge. We can see that the 2 negatives here will cancel the 2 positives, and we know that we're dealing with copper 2 chloride. So in this case, what we would do is we would use what's called the stock labeling system, and we would write it as copper Roman numeral 2 chloride. Okay, this is called the stock system. Okay, let's go on to B. And this time we're using copper chloride. And it's named the same. Okay, it's copper chloride. But I want you to notice here that there's no subscript. There is no subscript. And there's no subscript here either, which means if we do our crisscross, this will be a +1, and this will be a -1. And what this tells us is that instead of using copper 2 chloride, we're actually going to use copper, oops, now let's erase this for a minute here. We're going to do copper Roman numeral 1 chloride. Okay, so in stock system, what we do is we find the charge on the anion, we reverse crisscross it above, and we add a positive charge because that's what a cation has. And we find out that copper actually has 2 forms, one being copper 1 and one being copper 2. Okay, so keep working. Good luck, and we'll check all your work in class tomorrow.